Thank you, everyone. First, I would like to speak about advanced network architecture, and more specifically, what kind of advanced network architecture we could be implementing in data center in the Philippines to help to improve and enhance the performance. Maybe you could take that first question.
While the advanced network architectures optimize the data center operations, distribution utility should adopt the smart grid technology. This smart grid technology is happening now in MERALCO. For MERALCO, its trust is to provide its customers reliable, efficient, and adequate electric service. Part of the smart grid technologies will go to the substation. It should have a substation automation. The substation automation should adopt the latest industry of 61850 is a communication protocol for substation, and the advanced management system for is to monitor in real time the operation of this substation operations. Also included the smart grid technology is the distribution automation of distribution network. The distribution network should have provision for several time provisions, specifically for the data center operations, so that in case of outage, there should be a redundancy for its continuous supply of power. And the part of distribution automation is the adoption of the use of remote controlled or intelligent line devices. That includes remote controlled line reclosers, trip saver, and capacitor switch. These devices will help monitor the efficiency of the operations of the distribution network. Included also in the smart grid technology is the implementation of a central nerve of our system control center that adopts the supervisory control and data acquisition of the SCADA equipment. The SCADA equipment is a two-way system for the distribution utility to monitor in real time the operation of its distribution network. And also part of in the system control center is the advanced distribution management system and the DER management system. In the customer side, part of the smart grid is to the adoption of the smart meters for the advanced metering infrastructure. So this smart grid technology should be in place so that the data center, this operation should have a continuous supply power with reliability and redundancy. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your answer. So those solutions that you suggested, of course, they are very easy to implement in a new project. However, what are the challenges and how to overcome those challenges into implementing those solutions, those advanced network architecture in existing infrastructure? Maybe Bill, you will have some things to say about this?
Sure, thank you. So, a lot of discussion today on the very rapidly advancing technologies, all the way from smart grids and monitoring substations to inside the shell and what's happening with the networks and the equipment. But my little bit of insight here in the Philippines is that our technology on the construction and the project delivery and the power delivery is lagging substantially behind the technology that's advancing rapidly. We need a very concerted effort here, and we're starting to see it with the major construction companies tying up with our foreign partners to do that transfer of technology, bring that in. But it really needs to happen at a fundamental, across-the-board basis, addressing everything in construction and project delivery, from how we think about problems, how we handle safety, how we handle environmental issues, all the way through project delivery. And that's going to take a very substantial effort for the long term. And as we do those, we can begin to address those challenges head on and overcome them.
Thank you again. Thinking about environmental issues in long term, this is a big topic at the moment for the data center industry, because people start to realize that it has a carbon footprint that's way higher than we could have potentially ever imagined. So what would you say are some good potential source of energy that we could be utilizing for data centers in the Philippines in the future? Maybe Roberto?
I would recommend the adoption of the hybrid renewable energy systems that integrate solar PV with the battery energy storage system. So that solar PV generates power, the excess power will be stored in the energy storage system, and it can be used during nighttime where the solar PV is inactive. The size of the hybrid RE system could be depending on the load of the data center.
Okay. Thank you very much. Besides solar energy, of course, that's not enough. We also need to have more improvement in a data center. So are there any enhancement in terms of improvement to make sure that the data center cleaners, maybe Stephen Davis, you have some insights?
Yes, sure. As we've progressed over the years, we've gone from 40 watts per square meter, we've talked about the production floor of the data center, to 140 watts per square meter. Now we're at basically 10 kilowatts per square meter almost, and continuing to grow. So over the last few years, we've seen these growth, and how do we adapt to them? With the a raised floor environment, from a 12-inch raised floor to a 1 meter raised floor, now we're going firewalls or fan walls to ensure that we get a higher temperature there, a lower PUE capability, and a lot more efficiency out of the data center itself. But air cooling can really only sustain about 32 kilowatts maximum. I do not recommend anybody going over 32 kilowatts in air cooled or even considering it. That's where we start looking at the direct-to-chip cooling, the submersive cooling, the ability to have these alternative cooling capacities for higher density loads. Now, the biggest challenge that most of these data centers are going to encounter is they've already built space where a data hall is 280 racks. Well, once you put AI in, or 100 kilowatt racks, your 280 racks of 10 kilowatts turns into 28 racks. So you just architected your entire space, established your cooling system for the entire space, the data hall, and so it allocates it out to cool equally across the data hall, and you just consolidated that into a single 28 rack area. So the wasted money on space, architecture, revenue, and capabilities are all diminished at that point based on a brick and mortar traditional data center. So how do we adapt that in the future? How do we prepare for these different changes, these paradigm shifts, and these conundrums of how to manage the facility?
A question, bringing more question. Thank you.
Alex, could I follow up on the power?
Please, go ahead.
So I think that we need to, given the growth that was talked about in all of these discussions and panels this morning, I think we need to take a very clear-eyed view and realize that we're not going to be able to sustain this growth or propel this growth with a purely renewable energy play. And renewable energy here equals solar for the most part. But that's a massive amount of solar, which equals a massive amount of land. So clearly we need a transitional fuel to deliver that energy for the next 10 years. And I'm a strong advocate of LNG. I think the company has a good vision on LNG. Again, it's a transmission problem, whether it's coming from coal-fired plants across transmission lines or gas across the road and pipelines. But that's probably the focus that we need to have in moving the power solution forward.
Thank you very much for that, Alan. Speaking of all those technologies have been growing very quickly, and it also requires a lot of workforce that will be able to monitor those data centers, operate them. What would you say are the skills that will be the most in demand for the next 5 to 10 years for data center in the Philippines? Maybe Cyril?
Yeah, so I think a lot of topics have been covered already in terms of the technology that are being brought in. So the designs of the data centers are conceived by global firms. These are global templates. A lot of innovation has been brought in already. These data centers are funded by global platforms who also are very familiar with expectations of hyperscalers and future clients like STT, Flow, Digital Edge, etc. And they know customers' expectations and best practices. So in terms of the training, if you look at the data center industry, this is not really a very labor-intensive industry. This is not the BPO industry. It's not going to hire tens of thousands of people. I guess at most you're looking at hundreds of people. So the way I would look at it is not to expect universities or schools to train the people that you need tomorrow, but look at how we did with the IT industry. Vendors in the past, like Cisco, devised standards such as CCNA. And if you wanted a good network engineer, you had them pass the certification. So I think it's really up to the industry, the vendors, the chambers of commerce to define training standards and to hire the best talent you can from universities and have them be certified. We're looking here at hundreds of people, not tens of thousands of people. So this should be very much doable, but this is your investment. I've been running data center for years now, and we invest all the time in training. So we hire fresh grads and we train them. So it's an investment, and it's not going to happen overnight.
Right.
Thank you. That's a very good point, actually. So my next question will be, what can those stakeholders, those big companies, vendors, operators do to help develop and nurture the local talents here in the Philippines?
Well, I think, especially in the facilities side, if you look at the electrical engineers, the aircon engineers, they tend to stay long with the companies because it's a very specialized skill. So you just need to invest on training. And I think what engineers want is to be always kept up to date with their skills and their training. And they'll stay with you. So that's what I would do.
David, maybe you have some point as well?
Yeah, there's a lot of areas coming out, which is good to see how this market is maturing. We have about 400 megawatts of capacity coming online in the next 2 to 3 years. Where are these people going to come from? There's only one shopping place to find your people, and it's either the existing data centers that are out there or a manufacturing plant for silicon chips who are very refined. So there are programs out there, like I love seeing Digital Edge, what they said about the interns, with what STT is doing with the multiple universities to start the career path of people in the industry. And when I go to different events, I hear people, oh yeah, I've been here for 5 years in the industry. I've been here for 7 years. I love hearing that because they're having a lot of pride. It's actually an industry. In the next 2 years alone, we're going to need about 500 skilled mechanical and electrical engineers to support the facilities management capabilities, and trained and qualified. The training comes from a few providers out there, like EPI, Uptime, DCAP Academy, right? Even Huawei spoke about their training capability. It's not that's just general for training for the facilities management. Then you also have the products and the vendor training on top of that. So if we're going with different vendors, you got to be trained specifically on how that equipment is being managed. There are a lot of opportunities out there and a lot of availability for how the workshops, everything is going on. And it's good to see the maturity. It's good getting more to embrace it, more to participate, because it's not just training once, it's continued training. I mean, every single month, you got to retrain the people, make sure you got your quality assurance in place, make sure they know what to do. So your quality assessment officer or your center of excellence really needs to be watching how they're trained. I walk into too many data centers and see error after error, flaw after flaw, zero escalation, zero management, failure capability. This is where we see the 98% human error factor in the data centers, because a lot of facilities management don't know what to do because they're not retrained consistently, reminded what their job is, how to do that job, and be effective.
Thank you very much. My last point for this panel will be about international collaboration, because this morning a lot of people have been speaking about how the Philippine market has been developing very quickly, but it cannot sustain on its own, and they will need to collaborate with more like international entities. So from your point of view, what will be the main benefit of collaborating with international entities for developing the markets? Think Bill?
Sure. Thank you. Steve just touched on it. Digital Edge touched on it. Huawei touched on it. ST&T. That international collaboration is imputing that idea of investing in training and working to standards. Typically, our culture here and our companies here have not invested heavily in training, and these data centers require a phenomenally talented workforce in an ever-changing environment, and that's going to require an investment. And that mashup with the international firms coming in, that's going to be imputed into our culture here and help us grow. The training to standards and the operating to standards, there's also an important aspect that will be brought over. Different philosophies and different cultures view standards differently, but in this data center market that is hyper-connected around the globe, there is one standard to work to, and we need to work up to that. And I think those international alliances, as well as obviously the foreign direct investments and capital coming in, that intellectual and technology transfer and approach to this kind of work is going to be a big payoff for us.
Yeah, thank you for your key insights. Besides training and investments, are there any other ways that international stakeholders could help move the industry forward? I think, Cyril, you had some discussion about this?
I'd like to say, a few words here. So we've had a massive amount of investment in state-of-the-art data centers in the country. Very clearly, these data centers are not aimed at local demand. This is not the local industry that's going to fill up those data centers, and you know it. You build the data centers for the hyperscalers, and most of the data centers present here are part of platforms, data center platforms that are present in other countries, and the marketing is even done outside the country, aiming at Facebook, Google, Microsoft, etc. So the demand will come from outside. Going back to power, I think we're looking at, I don't even know how many megawatts of power is being built, but hundreds of megawatts, 500 megawatt, more? You would know better, but it's a lot of power. And the only way to address this demand, I think, is renewable, and not necessarily in Luzon, but it can be distributed. So solar, anything that comes will help. So power is going to be a big issue. Now, you have the hyperscalers who may or may not come or may come slowly. So I think the objective of data center owners is to fill up the data centers. A good data center is a data center that is full, either of hyperscalers or local customers. Don't neglect the local market. Now, there's one piece that's missing, in my view, here in this country, and I've been in this business for a long time, is the awareness of government, so on power, renewable, but also in the legal framework. All the countries in the region have data localization, data sovereignty laws, except the Philippines. Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, Indonesia have those in place. And if you want to support the industry here and to have hyperscalers come and the data stay and not just provide power and cooling, but also data management, AI, and supporting services, the data has to be here. So I again mentioned this topic. I think the government has to look at it very closely because it's urgent now.
Thank you for this. Is there any speaker that would like to bounce on that last question regarding the government?
Yeah, if you don't mind. When we look at who the customers are nowadays in the data centers, what Cyril said is right on target. It's no longer the local enterprise who's the local target client. They're all availing to the X as a service providers that are out there. And the Philippines has the highest social media. I mean, preaching to the choir here, of course, 2.2 billion hours a month of video streaming between TikTok, YouTube, and Netflix alone. It's huge. The Philippines is one of the largest in the world, yet none of these companies are currently co-located here in the Philippines. So trying to attract those clients as they come in, the demand is there, the need is there. Now, with that comes a lot of international collaboration. You need the confidence of them that the data center can be managed correctly, can be efficient, and that they can be an intricate part of their own data structure. So there's a lot of very good maturity happening, and over the next few years, we're going to see a significant difference. I do like to put forward between like a good comparison. You can compare the Philippines to where Indonesia was 7 years ago. Indonesia now is 1.7 gigawatts of power 7 years later. We're on the same track. They started with 68 megawatts of total capacity 7 years ago. A year ago, Philippines was at 48 megawatts of capacity, total usage. Now we're looking at 400 in the next 2 years coming online. Fantastic.
I would like to thank you all for coming today. Thank you to our panelists as well in the audience, and have a good lunch.
Thanks.